On this Wednesday night, staunch denials. A terror suspect's father speaks with Global News.
He's not a terrorist.
What he says happened when RCMP arrested his son. Uncorking old barriers.
Well, I've been waiting for 20 years for this to happen.
When the rules will be relaxed on buying booze from other provinces. And the brewing questions some businesses have. No end in sight, what Ukraine says is Russia's biggest attack yet, and what the U.S. is considering to help Ukraine. Plus, how and where one Canadian couple's letter at sea was finally found.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There is more insight tonight into the suspects accused of plotting to create an anti-government militia. 4 men from Quebec, including 2 members of the Canadian Armed Forces, have been charged with multiple offences, including facilitating terrorist activity. Police seized multiple weapons and say the men were stockpiling an arsenal. Touria Izri tracked down the father of one of the accused, and she has our top story tonight.
Filippo Day was home when RCMP officers burst through the door to arrest his son. The first stun grenade came through here, he says. Police raided his rural property west of Quebec City and took 24-year-old Simon Angeo Day into custody. It's hard, he says. I can't accept this. Filippo Day says his son was in the Van Duze Regiment, but recently left the Canadian Armed Forces. He says he liked guns and military training, but denies he wanted to start an anti-government militia. It's not true. He's not a terrorist. Angeo Day is one of 3 men charged with facilitating terrorism in an alleged plot to take over land near Quebec City. RCMP say they discovered a cache of explosive devices, guns, and thousands of rounds of ammunition. Another one of the accused, Raphael Lagacé, posted photos on Facebook posing with guns and criticizing C-21, the federal government's firearms legislation.
He went in a hurry out of this condo.
Neighbors who did not want to appear on camera say Lagacé lived in this complex in Quebec City and moved out after police raided the home in January 2024. Marc-Aurèle Chabot was an active member in the Canadian Armed Forces and served at nearby CFB Valcartier. So did Matthew Forbes, charged with possessing explosive devices and firearms. According to court documents, he acquired weapons from the United States and France. The RCMP alleged training and organizing took place between June 2021 and January 2024 in Quebec City, Montreal, and in Ontario, in Petawawa and Rolphton.
The Canadian Armed Forces is going to have to take a good hard look at themselves to see what their screening process is, and maybe to do a continual and possibly irregular security screening.
The military police says it took part in the RCMP investigation, along with the Canadian Armed Forces. It's still not clear what ideology may have motivated these men, or what they planned on doing with the land police say they wanted to take over. The Canadian military declined our request for an interview. Donna?
Okay, Touria Izri near Quebec City, thanks. In Alberta, 3 people have been hospitalized after they were assaulted at the Calgary Stampede last night. Police say they responded to reports of a serious assault on the Midway just after 11 p.m. Shortly after, 2 more people were found with serious injuries outside the Stampede grounds. Investigators determined all 3 people were attacked in the same incident. They believe it was a targeted attack and are asking witnesses to come forward. Industry Minister Melanie Joly is responding to U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to impose a 50% tariff on copper imports. The U.S. is the biggest importer of copper mined in Canada, and Joly acknowledges livelihoods are at stake.
My job right now is to make sure that in the context of this trade war, I'm supporting the front lines of this trade war, which are the workers and the companies affected by the unjustifiable and unjustified tariffs.
The American Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says the tariff on copper would likely go into effect August 1st. The target date for the Canada-U.S. trade and security deal still being negotiated is July 21st. Well, after years of debate and delays, most of Canada's provinces and territories have agreed to remove a long-standing trade barrier. Canadians will be able to order alcohol to be delivered to them from producers outside their province. But it's not going to happen until next spring. There are still obstacles like taxes and shipping that have to be worked out, as Neetu Garcha explains.
By May next year, most Canadians will be able to order alcohol from licensed producers across provincial borders for personal use. Not a moment too soon for some.
I've been waiting for 20 years for this to happen.
The agreement is part of a broader push to reduce interprovincial trade barriers, but for some small businesses, the timeline isn't soon enough.
I think the general feeling is that 2026, it's still a year to go. It's a little bit longer than what we were anticipating to see.
And while the date gives producers a deadline to work with, there are concerns about how shipping costs, taxation, and implementation will be handled.
All these different agreements and MOUs, they can end up creating a whole lot more red tape.
For brewers, the change may have little impact commercially. Part of their problem is shipping costs can outweigh the price of the product.
Beer is a relatively heavy product to ship, so it's very expensive to ship any kind of distance. Beer is also a product that is perishable.
Wine producers may have more opportunity for expansion, but both industries are urging governments to consider the impact of taxes. Alcohol taxes in Canada are applied at both the federal and provincial levels, often calculated as a percentage of the price or volume, meaning cross-border sales can trigger multiple layers of tax.
In Canada, beer taxes are nearly 50% of the price of beer, highest in the G7.
The last thing that we want is to have spent 20 years to remove internal barriers to trade and have them replaced by tax barriers to trade.
According to a new Ipsos poll exclusively for Global News, 6 in 10 Canadians believe eliminating interprovincial trade barriers will boost the national economy.
It's hope and expectation. Not a lot of strong belief that it will actually happen, though.
But there are still devils in the details, a reminder of what's taken so long to remove the barriers in the first place. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
In Texas, authorities deflected questions today about why more wasn't done to warn people ahead of the catastrophic flash flooding on the July 4th weekend. Search teams say it could take weeks to search the debris for the estimated 160 people still missing. At least 119 people are known to have died. Most of the dead are in Kerr County. The sheriff defended emergency responders and said a full analysis of what went wrong will come later.
And I know that's going to be asked over and over. Please understand that. We're not running, we're not going to hide from everything. That's going to be checked into at a later time. I wish I could tell you that time. I don't know that time.
Nearly a week after it happened, the full extent of the disaster is still not clear. Authorities are asking residents not to clear their own property with heavy equipment until search teams can check the debris piles for victims. There has been deadly flash flooding in New Mexico, too. It was triggered by the runoff from torrential rain that fell in areas charred by wildfires last year. At least 35 homes were swept away and 3 people are known to have died. Search and rescue operations there are still underway. Ukraine says Russia has launched its largest drone and missile attack since the full-scale invasion began. Most of the more than 700 Russian drones were intercepted, as were some of the Russian missiles. Ukraine, though, is more desperate than ever to strengthen its defenses, and support from the U.S. is critical. But as Redmond Shannon reports, it is a touchy topic even within President Trump's cabinet.
For the second time in the 2 months of his papacy, Pope Leo welcomes Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, this time at the pontiff's idyllic and peaceful Castel Gandolfo, southeast of Rome. Leo repeating his offer to host peace talks between Ukraine and Russia, a proposal the Kremlin previously declined. And Russian President Vladimir Putin shows no sign of changing his mind. Moscow's escalation is growing. More than 700 drones overnight, the largest such attack of the war so far, according to Kyiv, with a baby among those killed.
We get a lot of thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
The barrage was just hours after the US president again voiced frustration with Moscow. The Kremlin says it's staying calm about Donald Trump's salty language.
He's found out relatively quickly that Putin has no interest in stopping this war, has no interest in peace. In the short term, Ukraine needs as many drones and air defenses and artillery that they can possibly get.
The Trump administration has U-turned on last week's decision to suspend military aid to Ukraine. Trump again asked about reports that the pause was authorized by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
I would know. If a decision was made, I will know. I'll be the first to know.
Trump says he is considering more sanctions and more Patriot missiles for Ukraine. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz says he believes diplomacy has been exhausted, promising more military support for Kyiv, a policy ever more controversial in Germany. He and other leaders will meet Zelensky in Rome this week at what will be the 4th annual Ukraine Recovery Conference. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
For the first time, an international court has concluded Russia is responsible for widespread human rights abuses in Ukraine. The European Court of Human Rights also says Russia is responsible for shooting down Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 over separatist-controlled eastern Ukraine in 2014. One Canadian was on board that flight. Ukraine called the damning judgments historic and unprecedented, but these rulings carry little weight, and Russia says it will ignore them. The United Nations relief agency that used to distribute aid in Gaza until Israel banned it is condemning Israel's plan to move all Palestinians in Gaza into an internment camp on the ruins of Rafah. The head of UNRWA says this would de facto create massive concentration camps at the border with Egypt and deprive Palestinians of any prospects for a better future in their homeland. Israel claims it would be a humanitarian city. Today, the World Health Organization said there have been more than 600 attacks on healthcare facilities in Gaza since the conflict began in 2023. Elon Musk's artificial intelligence chatbot, Grok, took a sharp turn this week and began praising Adolf Hitler. Grok is integrated into Musk's social media site X, and it began answering users' questions with anti-Semitic comments and referred to itself as Mecha Hitler. The posts have since been deleted. Musk had said last week he was updating the chatbot. He complained previous answers were too woke. Only one post now remains. It says, since being made aware of the content, X AI has taken action to ban hate speech before Grok posts on X. The CEO of X announced today she is stepping down. Linda Yaccarino has been in the role for 2 years. She didn't give a reason for leaving, but posted this about Elon Musk. I'm immensely grateful to him for entrusting me with the responsibility of protecting free speech, turning the company around, and transforming X into the everything app. Outrage among MAGA supporters coming up. Why they're angry no more documents about the Jeffrey Epstein case will be released. Supporters of the American president are angry after the U.S. Justice Department announced this week there was no incriminating client list left behind when convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein took his own life. As Jackson Prosco reports, Donald Trump's MAGA supporters have been fed conspiracy theories about that for years, and now they're suddenly being told there's nothing to the claims.
Something is horribly wrong here.
The rift within President Donald Trump's base is growing.
Don't sit there and tell me there's nothing when you told me there was something.
After an abrupt end to the death and sex trafficking investigations into Jeffrey Epstein.
I mean, you couldn't discredit yourself worse. It's really, really demoralized people.
For years, conspiracy theories have dogged Epstein's prison suicide.
I'm amazed at how few people are putting two and two together.
As rumors swirled about a possible client list full of high-profile individuals. Rumors fueled directly by Trump's inner circle.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
They're convinced that the Epstein client list is going to have a lot of Democratic politicians on it. Problem is, if it has politicians on it, it's almost certain to have Donald Trump on it.
It's no secret Epstein had plenty of important friends, including Trump. This week, in an unsigned memo, the Department of Justice said there was no incriminating client list and went on to definitively say Epstein died by suicide, releasing video from outside the prison wing the night he died.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
If Trump wanted to stop the questions, he seemed to make things worse by lashing out.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
Leaving many MAGA supporters to believe it's far from case closed, with the conspiracy theory they've been fed for years getting a whole lot bigger. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
Ahead, Canadian sentiment during a politically turbulent time, what internal polling reveals. A signature policy of the Liberal government to make childcare more affordable across the country is not on track to meet its target. A new report shows Ottawa will miss its April 2026 deadline to implement $10 a day childcare services across Canada. The analysis by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives concludes 6 provinces and territories have fully met or surpassed the target. While fees have gone down, the report says 5 provinces, BC, Alberta, Ontario, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, do not yet have plans to reduce costs to $10 a day. The program was announced by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in 2021. We are getting new insight into the political turmoil inside the Trudeau government near the end of the former Prime Minister's term. Global News has obtained internal polling which sheds light on how Canadians were feeling about the government last fall. Polling was done for the Prime Minister and his most senior officials. And as David Aiken reports, it paints a picture of a nervous electorate.
What are you going to tell them in caucus today?
Last fall was a turbulent time for politics in North America. Liberal MPs were trying to dump an unpopular leader, Justin Trudeau.
I can say we're not united. There's still a number of our members who feel we need a change in leadership. I'm one of those.
President of the United States.
And in the U.S., Donald Trump secured a second term, promising disruptive America First policies.
Many of us served during the former Trump administration, but I think now we move from just being the friendly neighbor of the North to a strategic partner.
Now, new internal weekly polls done for the Privy Council office last November and December, but just released to Global News through an access to information request, shows this turbulence impacted the mood of Canadian voters. 53% of 2,000 Canadians surveyed in the middle of November said they expected relations with the U.S. to get worse after Trump's win. And while 52% said Trudeau's government was doing a good job standing up for Canadian interests, 49% said it was not.
There you go.
That split further reflected by the fact that a third of respondents said Canada-U.S. relations were on the right track, a third said the wrong track, and the other third were not sure. Well, 1 in 5 who did not like the state of Canada-U.S. relations said so because they had no confidence in Trudeau. And so the stage was set for what would unfold weeks later, the departure of Trudeau, the rise of Mark Carney, turning around Liberal fortunes with an appeal to those Canadians who believe the federal government needed different leadership and a different approach to America in the wake of Donald Trump's return. Donna.
David Aiken, thank you. It floated from one side of the Atlantic to the other. Next, memories of a Canadian couple's romantic date discovered more than a decade later.
Her little monitor. Her blood sugar is good right now.
This is the newest Barbie, and she has some new accessories. This Barbie has type 1 diabetes and wears a continuous glucose monitor on her arm, as well as an insulin pump on her waist. Barbie partnered with Breakthrough T1D, the leading global type 1 diabetes research and advocacy organization, to create the doll as part of Mattel's campaign for inclusive representation. Well, this next story may make the world feel a little bit smaller. A Canadian couple is making the national news in Ireland because of something they did more than 10 years ago. They released a message that was carried by time and tides across the Atlantic. That message, as Mike Armstrong explains, arrived this week.
Almost every day, Kate Gay and her husband take their dog for a walk on the shoreline near their home. It's on the southwest tip of Ireland. Gay also takes along a camera, and Monday snapped a shot of a strange bottle that had washed up.
There was paper in it, and we sort of said, it's a message in a bottle, in a way joking, really, I suppose.
Now, Gay and her husband didn't open the bottle. Instead, she took it to a meeting Monday night of a local conservation group. They had to break the bottle to get to the message.
So September 14th, 2012, Anita and Brad's day trip to Bell Island.
The note was short and simple. Somewhere, some people named Anita and Brad wrote 13 years ago, quote, "Today we enjoyed dinner, this bottle of wine, and each other on the edge of the island." The note also included a phone number, but there was no answer. The conservation group decided to post what they'd found on their Facebook page.
Never thought that within the hour someone would have texted in, "We found them," and never expected Anita to message our Facebook page at 12 midnight on the dot.
I think the number that was listed was Brad's parents' landline.
Well, Anita Squires of Newfoundland had written the note. That day, she and a boyfriend had taken a ferry to Bell Island, very far from Ireland where the bottle would end up. But a message that took more than a decade to cross the ocean took minutes to find its way back. She remembers touring Bell Island.
It turned out to be a beautiful day, so we stopped in just at the grocery store and got some things for a picnic.
Now, the first question from the folks in Ireland was, are you still together? They are. Anita and Brad married and now have 3 children. The found note in the bottle wasn't really a message as much as a memory of a moment, one that didn't cost much, but eventually founded a family. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Sweet. That is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Your Canada is going global this week. We're showing you pictures of Canadian pride we've received from all over the world. We're showcasing Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, and Costa del Sol, Spain tonight. Please keep them coming. Send your pictures from wherever you are to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.